945 AD, Kievan, Rus, modern-day Ukraine. A messenger arrives at the city of Iskorostan with an unusual request from the recently widowed Grand Princess Olga. She wants sparrows and pigeons, just a few from every household in the city. It seems like a strange request, almost childish. The people of Iskorostan laugh. Their princess must be going mad with grief. But it's harmless enough, right? Just some birds. They collect the sparrows and pigeons, 3 from each household, just as she asked. That night, Olga's soldiers tied small pieces of cloth to each bird, soaked the cloth in sulfur, set them on fire, and released them. The birds did what birds do. They flew home, back to their nests, in the thatched roofs, in the wooden eaves, in every single house in Iskorostan. By morning, the entire city was ash. This is the story of Saint Olga of Kiev. Yes, saint, as in canonized by the Orthodox Church. A woman who committed methodical genocide against an entire people, became one of the most powerful rulers in medieval Europe, and is venerated to this day as equal to the apostles. This isn't legend. This is documented history in the Primary Chronicle, the oldest historical record of Eastern Europe. And the burning birds? That was just the finale. The revenge tour lasted a full year and got progressively more creative. To understand why a saint committed genocide, we need to understand what they took from her. Princess Olga was married to Igor of Kiev, Grand Prince of the Kievan Rus, a Viking-descended dynasty that ruled over a massive territory covering modern Ukraine, Belarus, and Western Russia. Igor wasn't just her husband, he was her partner in power. By all accounts, Olga was already involved in governance, already showing the political brilliance she'd later become famous for. And then Igor made a fatal mistake. He got greedy. The Drevlians were a Slavic tribe living in the forests northwest of Kiev. Like most tribes under Kievan control, they paid tribute. Protection money, basically. Igor had already collected their annual tribute for 945, but Igor decided he wanted more. He took a small retinue of soldiers and went back to collect a second tribute from the same people in the same year. The Drevlians had enough. Their leader, Prince Mal, saw an opportunity. Igor was practically alone, vulnerable. They captured Igor, and they made an example of him. According to the Primary Chronicle, they bent 2 birch trees down to the ground, tied one of Igor's legs to each tree, and let the trees go. Igor of Kiev, Grand Prince of the Kievan Rus, was literally torn in half. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Drevlians thought they'd been clever. They'd eliminated a greedy overlord. They'd sent a message. And they had a plan to legitimize everything. Prince Mal would marry Igor's widow, Olga. This would unite the territories peacefully. The succession would be secure. Everyone wins. So Prince Mal sent 20 of his best men, his most distinguished nobles, to Kiev. They arrived in boats dressed in their finest, carrying the marriage proposal. The Drevlians were about to learn something important about Olga. She held grudges. When the 20 Drevlian nobles arrived, Olga greeted them warmly. She listened to their proposal. She smiled. She told them she was honored by Prince Mal's offer. Then she said something strange. She told them that tomorrow she would receive them with full honors. Her people would carry them to the palace in their boats. It would be a great ceremony befitting such distinguished guests. The Drevlians were thrilled. This was going better than expected. That night, Olga's people dug an enormous pit in the courtyard of the palace. Deep, wide, big enough for a boat, big enough for 20 men. The next morning, the Drevlians woke to find Kievan servants ready to carry them, still sitting in their boat, through the streets. It must have felt like a victory parade. They carried the boat right to the edge of the pit and threw them in. Boat, nobles, and all. Olga came to the edge and looked down at them. The chronicler records her words. "Is the honor to your taste?" Then she buried them alive, while they were still in the boat. Revenge won, complete. But Olga wasn't done, not even close. Olga sent a message back to Prince Mal. The message said the marriage proposal was acceptable, but Prince Mal needed to send better representatives, more distinguished men. The first group hadn't been important enough. Prince Mal, having no idea his first delegation was currently suffocating under 6 feet of dirt, was insulted. Of course, he'd send his very best nobles, the most important men in the Drevlian leadership. The second delegation arrived, even larger than the first, even more distinguished. Olga greeted them with exceptional hospitality. She apologized for making them travel so far. She offered them a chance to wash and rest before the formal negotiations. She'd prepared bathhouses, traditional Russian saunas, for their comfort. The Drevlians entered the bathhouses, probably feeling pretty good about how this was going. Olga's soldiers barred the doors from the outside, piled wood around the buildings, and set them on fire. The entire second delegation burned to death. Revenge 2, complete. Now let's pause and appreciate the psychology here. Olga had now killed over 50 of the Drevlian leadership, and Prince Mal still didn't know anything was wrong. Communication was slow in 945 AD. Messengers took weeks. Mal thought negotiations were progressing normally. Olga sent another message. This one said she was coming to Iskorostan herself to hold a funeral feast for her late husband Igor at his grave. It was tradition. She'd mourn properly, and then they could discuss the marriage. Prince Mal prepared a funeral feast. This was going exactly according to plan. Olga was coming to them. She was accepting the marriage. Victory. Olga arrived in Iskorostan with a small retinue. She looked like a grieving widow, not a threat. She went to Igor's burial mound. She wept. She performed the traditional lamentations. Then came the funeral feast. Massive. Thousands of Drevlians attended. The beer and mead flowed freely. This was a celebration disguised as a funeral. Prince Mal was about to marry a princess. The Drevlians had defeated Kiev and come out ahead. Olga's small retinue served drinks. They were very attentive, very generous. Keep drinking. More mead, more beer. They made sure every Drevlian was thoroughly, completely drunk. And then Olga gave a signal. Her small retinue drew weapons and began the slaughter. The primary chronicle records that 5,000 Drevlians died that night. The entire leadership class, the warriors, the nobles, anyone of importance who'd come to celebrate. It was a massacre disguised as a funeral feast. Revenge 3, complete. Now you'd think this would be enough. Most people would call it even at this point. Olga had killed thousands, including virtually the entire Drevlian leadership. But remember, they'd torn her husband in half, and Olga was just getting warmed up. 946 AD, 1 year after Igor's death. Olga returned to Drevlian territory, this time with an army, not a retinue, an actual military force. She besieged Iskorostan, the Drevlian capital, the city where Prince Mal ruled, where the decision to kill Igor had been made. The siege lasted all summer. But here's the thing about medieval sieges. They're expensive, they're slow, and the Drevlians were dug in behind wooden walls in a city they knew intimately. Olga could have starved them out, could have tried to break the walls, could have negotiated surrender terms like any normal medieval ruler. But Olga had other plans. As autumn approached, Olga sent a message to the city. She said she was tired of fighting. Most of her army had gone home. She was willing to end the siege. She'd accept a token tribute and leave them in peace. The Drevlians were suspicious. This seemed too easy. They asked what tribute she wanted. Olga's response: "Give me 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each house. I do not want to impose a heavy tribute like my husband. I want just this small thing." The Drevlians laughed. After a year of siege, the great Princess Olga wanted birds. Their terrifying enemy had gone soft. Grief had broken her mind. This was almost sad. They collected the birds, 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from every household in Iskorostan. They probably joked about it while doing it. The princess wants pets. The princess has lost her mind. They gave her the birds. That night, Olga's soldiers worked quickly. They took small pieces of cloth. Sulfur was readily available, used for various purposes in medieval times. They soaked the cloth in sulfur, tied them to the legs and tails of every single bird. Then they set the cloth on fire and released them. Think about what happened next. Hundreds, maybe thousands of birds on fire, panicking, doing the one thing birds instinctively do when frightened. They flew home. Iskorostan was a medieval city. Wooden buildings, thatched roofs, packed tightly together, dry autumn conditions. Every bird returned to its nest, in the eaves, under the roofs, in the barns and homes and workshops. Within hours, Iskorostan was an inferno. People fled the burning city into the night, right into Olga's waiting army. The primary chronicle says some were killed, some were enslaved, some were left alive but given such heavy tribute they could never recover. The Drevlian tribe, as a distinct political entity, effectively ceased to exist. Revenge for complete. So let's talk about what happened next, because it's possibly the most unexpected part of this story. After systematically destroying the Drevlians, Olga returned to Kiev and ruled as regent for her son, Sviatoslav. She was now the sole power in Kievan Rus. And she became one of the greatest rulers in medieval European history. Olga reformed the tribute system that had gotten Igor killed. Instead of princes wandering around collecting whatever they could extort, she established fixed rates and official collection points. She created a standardized system of governance, setting up trading posts and administrative centers throughout the realm. She was a brilliant diplomat. She traveled to Constantinople, the greatest city in the Christian world, and met with Emperor Constantine VII. The Byzantine sources describe her as intelligent, witty, and politically astute. Constantine was so impressed he apparently proposed marriage, which Olga cleverly declined while maintaining the alliance. Most significantly, around 957 AD, Olga converted to Christianity. This was massive. The Kievan Rus was pagan. Viking gods, Slavic spirits, nature worship. And their ruler suddenly became Christian. Now her son Sviatoslav remained pagan and refused to convert, but Olga planted the seeds. She built churches. She invited missionaries. She created the framework. When her grandson, Vladimir the Great, converted the entire Kievan Rus to Orthodox Christianity in 988, he was completing Olga's work. The Orthodox Church recognized this. They canonized her, made her a saint. Saint Olga equaled the apostles, one of the most important figures in the Christianization of Eastern Europe. Here's where it gets philosophically interesting. The church knew about the Drevlian revenge. It's right there in the primary chronicle, the same source that documents her conversion. They didn't hide it or pretend it didn't happen. They canonized her anyway. Modern historians debate the accuracy of the primary chronicle. Were the numbers exaggerated? Did all 4 revenge plots really happen exactly as described? Was the burning bird attack even possible? Let's address that last one, because it's the one people doubt most. Birds will absolutely return to their nests when released. That's not disputed. Sulfur and cloth existed. The fires could be lit without immediately killing the birds, giving them time to fly. Medieval cities were incredibly vulnerable to fire. We have documented cases of single candles destroying entire districts. Could it work? Probably. Would it work every time? Maybe not. But it only needed to work once, and the archaeological record shows that Izkorostan experienced catastrophic destruction in the mid-10th century. Something burned that city to the ground. As for the other revenge plots, they align with medieval political practices. Burying enemies alive, burning them, slaughtering them at feast. These were all documented tactics in medieval warfare. Olga wasn't inventing new methods. She was just using them with extraordinary methodical patience. The primary chronicle was written about 150 years after these events, so there's definitely room for embellishment. But the core story, a widowed princess systematically destroying the tribe that killed her husband, appears consistently across multiple sources. Here's what we know for certain. Olga ruled Kievan Rus from 945 to approximately 963, nearly 20 years. Her reign was marked by administrative reform, diplomatic success, and territorial stability. She converted to Christianity, becoming one of the first Rus rulers to do so, and her conversion laid groundwork for the eventual Christianization of all of Eastern Europe. She was canonized by the Orthodox Church and remains one of the most venerated saints in Eastern Orthodoxy. Her feast day is July 11th. Churches across Eastern Europe are named for her. And she did all of this after spending a full year methodically annihilating everyone responsible for her husband's death. The Drevlians killed Igor because he was greedy and brutal. They thought they were dealing with a predictable problem. They had no idea his widow would prove far more dangerous than he ever was. There's something almost Shakespearean about Olga's story. The underestimated widow who reveals herself to be the most dangerous person in the room. The elaborate revenge plots that read like dark fairy tales. The transformation from vengeful killer to saintly reformer. But this wasn't fiction. This was a real woman navigating a brutal medieval world where showing weakness meant death. The question everyone asks is, was she a monster or a hero? The Orthodox Church answered, both. She was a saint who committed genocide, a devout Christian who buried men alive, a wise ruler who burned a city with birds. Medieval morality wasn't like ours. The Church canonized her not despite her violence, but recognizing that she lived in a time when such violence was sometimes necessary. She protected her realm, secured her son's inheritance, and brought Christianity to millions. From Olga's perspective, the Drevlians hadn't just killed her husband. They'd killed the Grand Prince of Kiev. They'd challenged the authority of the entire realm. If she'd shown mercy, every tribe under Kievan control would have seen weakness. Her son would have inherited chaos and civil war. So she made an example. She made it so elaborate, so terrible, that no one would dare challenge Kiev again for generations. And it worked. Saint Olga of Kiev died in 969 AD. She was buried in a Christian ceremony. Her grandson Vladimir later had her remains moved to the Church of the Tithes in Kiev, where she was venerated as a saint. The Drevlian tribe disappeared from history. Their territory was absorbed into Kievan Rus. Their culture was erased. Their name survives only in the chronicle that records their destruction. Igor was torn in half by birch trees and became a footnote in history. Olga burned a city with sparrows and became a saint. Some stories are too strange to be made up, too dark to be comfortable, too complex to judge by modern standards. This is one of them. Saint Olga of Kiev, equal to the apostles, protector of widows, enlightener of the Rus, also known as the woman who destroyed an entire people because they killed her husband. Both things are true. History rarely deals in simple heroes and villains. And sometimes the saint and the monster are the same person.